Welcome to London on this spring day. I brought you here to Tavistock Street in Covent Garden to celebrate one of the great architectural partnerships of all time, right up there with Pope Julius II and Michelangelo. It's between Sir Edwin Lutyens, who is one of the greatest architects ever, and Edward Hudson, his friend, his patron, his promoter. And we're now standing in front of the Country Life building that Edward Hudson commissioned for his magazine Country Life in 1904 from Lutyens. This is what Hudson wanted for his magazine, and in fact it's also what you see in the great tribute paid to Lutyens after his death, after Hudson's death, in the three great memorial volumes that were published in 1950 and are one of the landmarks of architectural publishing. This is my subject, Edwin Lutyens and Country Life. Country Life Books were the publishers of the Memorial Volumes. And here he is in a portrait by Meredith Frampton. It was painted in 1933 to 34 when Lutyens was the master of the Art Workers Guild, which was an arts and crafts organisation. Why is Lutyens important? Well, I show you a wonderful capriccio by the artist Carl Laubin. And this shows really all Lutyens' works. And Lutyens got going very, very early. He was only 19 when he opened his first office, which for an architect is exceptionally young. And he had a long career, about 50 years. And so there are a huge number of buildings. But it's not really the number of buildings which is important. It's the fact that he defined or he expressed some important things about his age. When he was designing country houses as a young man, he really did more than anybody to evoke the idyll of the Edwardian country house before the First World War. When the First World War happened, tremendous numbers of people lost their lives. It was a huge national trauma. And afterwards, we needed to find ways of remembering the dead and focusing the ceremonies of remembrance that took place. And so he designed the cenotaph, which is Britain's national war memorial, and literally hundreds of war memorials in France for the Imperial War Graves Commission and across Britain too. So he found a way of expressing national grief. And then he was also the architect of the new imperial capital at New Delhi and the Viceroy's house. Of course, it was being created at a time when people knew that India was very likely soon to go independent, as it did. But nevertheless, this was a kind of statement of the best ideals that people had about empire. Lots of things wrong with empire, but this expressed what people hoped for it. At one point, Lutyens's office was number 15, Queen Anne's Gate. Hudson lived at number 17. So they were next door. They were seeing each other all the time. And there was a lot of exchange of ideas behind the scenes. And Hudson was also a very well-connected individual. Country Life had been founded in conjunction with Lord Riddle, who was a major politician, and Sir George Newnes, who was a big newspaper publisher who published things like the News of the World. Not very like Country Life, because that was a sort of scandal sheet, really. It's closed down now. But he was the kind of Rupert Murdoch of his day. So those were the sort of people that Hudson knew. So whenever there was something like the London County Council that needed a new headquarters, he would say to Lutyens, look, you've really got to go in for that. In fact, Lutyens didn't win that competition, but Hudson was always fighting his corner. And when the memorial volumes were published, I'm sure it was the same. I'm sure they were published out of the magazine's love for Lutyens, who had been so much a part of the country life story from the beginning. A man whom everybody admired, and I could almost say worshipped. And we, the community of scholars and writers and architects and everybody who loves Lutyens are so grateful to the ICAA for reproducing these magnificent memorial volumes in facsimile, because the first editions are extremely expensive and difficult to get hold of. And it's just going to be wonderful that the memorial volumes are reproduced in facsimile, and I'm going to be first in the queue to get one.